Issue 4, good news, bad news.
Pfizer and BioNTech say their coronavirus vaccine performed better than expected in now completed trials, with a 90% success rate in preventing COVID-19 infection. This means that a vaccine is finally on the horizon and likely to be available for emergency use by mid-December. But the bad news: the surge in US COVID infections is averaging 100,000 new cases and 1,000 deaths each day. Meanwhile, President Trump lashed out at Pfizer, claiming that the company held back its announcement until after the election.
You know, Kerry, one of the things that struck me with Pfizer's announcement is that I suspect if it had been reversed, that Joe Biden had lost the election and had been the incumbent, that the media would be generally a lot more aggravated by the prospect that Pfizer delayed their announcement. Your thoughts on that and the future of America's coronavirus strategy?
Absolutely. It was kind of interesting that the fact that Pfizer was actually saying that they were supposed to come out with an announcement even earlier, back in October. And then all of a sudden we find out that this announcement ended up coming out just a few days after the election. And you had a number of outlets who were saying, oh, well, you know, Pfizer had nothing to do with Operation Warp Speed, and Pfizer initially said in a New York Times report that they had nothing to do with Operation Warp Speed, and then they had to kind of backtrack that a bit. So there was some sort of initial skepticism over what exactly Pfizer was doing public relations-wise, and they ended up having a lot of egg on their face ultimately. Now, as far as the vaccine is concerned, there's a little weirdness going on, particularly with Governor Cuomo, who ended up saying, well, he's a little concerned that it's coming out during the time where you have Trump, who is still in office, and so now he's going to kind of be, is he going to sort of block it coming over in New York, and he's going to talk with other governors about it? That's a little strange because, look, if Pfizer made a drug that is 90% effective, shouldn't we want to actually distribute it as widely as possible? And then you have the Biden people who are also saying, well, it's going to go out internationally first before it goes to Americans. That's a little odd.
Okay, Clarence, your thoughts?
Just glad I got my polio shot back in the 50s when Eisenhower was president and public trust was at a much higher level than it is now. I mean, it's astounding to me that we can't even get a good news announcement on this vaccine without people saying, well, which conspiracy decided this? And I want to tell you, at my latest meeting with the media conspiracy, the whole affair was tabled. But in any case, I got to be careful. I think I'm like Mike Pompeo talking about the second term of President Trump. No, this is, we're gonna have enough trouble persuading people to take this vaccine when it comes out, because you've got the anti-vaxxers all over the place. And also, by the way, Pfizer tells us that this shot hurts. And a lot of people are gonna be reluctant to take it for that and for other reasons. But let's be happy we're making some progress here.
All right, and Pat, you know, a little joke might be, you know, the people who do not want to take this vaccine, maybe we have a little bit of natural selection in the works, because the sense of absurdity that you would not take this vaccine after all this is just mind-boggling. Anyway, Pat, your thoughts?
My thoughts are pretty grim. Look, the infections are growing geometrically or exponentially. The hospitalization deaths have started back up to 1,000 a day. They were about 2,000 earlier, I think in April or May. But all these things are going up. They're going up in the United States. They're going up in Europe. By the time we reach the new administration, I think the issue back on the table is going to be lockdowns versus open up. And Biden is much more receptive to the idea of locking down states and municipalities and all that. And I think that argument's going to grow in strength, and the country is not only evenly divided on this now, or deeply divided on this now, it's angrily divided over this issue. So I think this portends tremendous problems for Europe, the United States, Western civilization upcoming.
Eleanor.
Portends tremendous problems, and the president that we have for the next 60 some odd days is doing absolutely nothing. The country needs a national plan. Instead, this administration is backing away from testing. Governor Kasich, you call this lockdown. Nobody's using the word lockdown. You set hours for different businesses. You cut back how many people can be served indoors. There are different things you can do to try to regulate the spread of the virus. And we need people with expertise to be telling us. The pandemic task force that the President-elect Biden just put in place is co-chaired by David Kessler, who I'm sure Pat remembers and doesn't like. Kessler was head of the FDA in the late 80s and the 90s. He was appointed by Bush. He was held over by Clinton. He went after big tobacco with some success with regulations that were then overturned by the Supreme Court. But the war on tobacco went on, and he was a building block. He went after nutrition labels on food. He was called the nanny state commissar. He knows what it's like to negotiate that territory between imposing public policy regulations and navigating people's resistance to having their freedom curtailed. Again, we have experts are in place. I just wish they would have authority sooner than January 20th.
You know, Kerry, Eleanor mentions this idea of experts and the idea of science. One of the things I'm struck by, though, where I think President Trump has a point that Democrats miss, is that experts, when we are talking about coronavirus, must extend beyond scientists, that economists, business persons are experts, in the sense that the economic harm of this virus in many ways is commensurate, if not greater, than the health-related harm.
Absolutely. In fact, one of those experts that people started highlighting very recently is Dr. Michael Osterholm, who specifically talked about lockdowns. He has already said that the United States, he says that there's enough pool of money in people's savings right now to be able to go into a 6-week lockdown nationally. And you have a number of individuals who are saying, wait, hold on a second, wait, we already know what it's like to be locked down. And in the last lockdown that we had, President Trump told the governors, hey, if your state wants to lock down, it's up to you. But people are wondering whether or not whether or not Biden is going to say, you guys are going to be locking down whether you like it or not. We don't care if it's New York or if it's North Dakota. You governors aren't going to have any choice or else. And that is something that people are wondering about. I asked Mitt Romney whether or not he agreed with this. And he's like, as of now, I don't really see I don't really see that as a good idea. I asked Senator Leahy if he thought that was a good idea, and he said, I would rather do the Vermont plan. That is something I don't see the senators touching with a 10-foot pole, whether they're Democrat or Republican.
Clarence.
Those are good reasons for Joe Biden not to rush into it, which is not his nature anyway. And he's already expressed some caution about the idea of lockdowns. But one thing we know is he's going to approach this issue seriously. He's putting a task force together already. And it's very difficult for us to be forecasting now what conditions will be like if we are that bad off that a lockdown would even be considered.
Pat, one of the things that we do see here is this increasing political discord about what a second lockdown might look like. And yet there is good news, and it comes from an American company leading the world here. So a positive to take away, no?
Well, I think it's a terrific thing if the vaccine is 90% effective. I don't know exactly when it will come online in great volume, but that is tremendous good news. It really is, and it made a lot of folks hopeful, and Eleanor might not like this, but it sent the stock market up as well.
I just would point out, it was a press release. They have not released their data. It requires 2 shots. It also requires refrigeration, like 93 degrees below Fahrenheit. And Pfizer was not part of Operation Warp Speed, and they have signed on to the global group of countries that are pursuing. So there are a lot of steps between here and there, and there are several other vaccines potentially coming online. We may get some relief with the vaccine. It probably be midway through next year if we're lucky. So I resist the word lockdown. I think there are steps you can take short of what lockdown seems to imply, and you can help people who are hurt economically That's what we did at the outset of this. A lot of that relief money disappears at the end of this year. So you can help people economically, you can tighten the restrictions to some extent to try to control the virus, because you'll never get the economy back if the virus is rampant. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of lives between now and January that depend on whether people will wear a mask and socially distance.
But you were also talking about a filling up of all these hospitals and intensive care units and overflow, and people dying in horrendous circumstances. I read this morning, one doctor said, we're being asked which one should we save now? If this continues, I think you've got a real national crisis. But again, about the vaccine, I think it's a good thing, but I think you're going to have to wait to decide exactly how effective it is, who should get it first. I do agree, obviously, that's a very good thing. Hopefully others will come along with vaccines as well.
All right, Kerry and Clarence, about 30 seconds each. Kerry, you go first.
Look, as far as Pfizer was concerned, yes, they did say in their press releases that they were part of Operation Warp Speed. Now, as far as what they ended up saying very recently, and they said that they weren't part of it, and then they backtracked and they said yes, they were, because they ended up getting $2 billion for the many, many, many doses that the government ended up paying for it. That had a lot to do with PR. But look, also ultimately, we will be seeing some sort of vaccine coming out to the American public at some point, and not just from Pfizer, but from other companies that were working within Operation Warp Speed that will get out to the public.
All right, Clarence, final word.
I just think it's great. We've made this much progress, and we will make more. That I don't see much of a scandal here, frankly.
Okay, very good. I like that. That's good. More vaccines, hope on the horizon.